Ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are based. Today with us we have Jorge Coelho, who's a professor at the Universidad de Algarve, so the University of Algarve. He specializes in transforming cities, smart cities, and currently is a senior smart cities advisor at Babel Smart Cities, where he focuses on driving smart city transformation by collaborating with Portuguese cities on crucial initiatives like smart city facilities within the European city facility projects, unlocking funding opportunities, and sharing a sustainable future. So, we're very excited to have a long discussion on how we can make our cities better and smarter. He should be joining us shortly.
Yeah, go for
Thank you for joining, Jorge. I'm very excited to speak to you today about smart cities. I've gone ahead and done a little bit about of an introduction about who you are and what you do, but the floor is all yours. Please go ahead and introduce yourself as much as you can.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure. My name is Jorge Coelho. So basically, I'm the senior advisor for the Smart City. So basically, doing the city-facing functions of within a smart Babel Smart Cities. So basically, our purpose is to accelerate the smart city journeys of the cities. Basically, making it quicker and more impactful for the cities to take on board urban innovation. So basically, this means two things. One is to cut in half the time that it's needed to contract new urban solutions. So
Mhm.
in average, it's taking 22 months for a city between deciding and having access to these solutions. So basically, we position ourselves to reduce that at least in half the time, and this happens through different manners. But basically, from one end, our expertise. The second is also our network, because we've got a wide network of be it professionals or even people that work even in city government, but and share the use cases. And the second and the third one is our database. So we've got lots of over the last 8 years, we've been collecting from strategies to written specifications of innovations in the space within the different domains, be it mobility, energy, and so on. And so basically, we help the cities accelerate, and on the other end also to make it impactful. And so there's been like many times, obviously, like the cities are doing their best and getting the written specifications up to what's the best of the knowledge. But at times they become too narrow and basically like only one supplier can apply for a tender, for example, or the other way around. They make a tender that's too demanding, and then there's no market solution that can really fit that. And so basically, we try to level the terrain to make it both a reality so that the cities can take advantage of these solutions. But also the second part to it is like so that no sole supplier also feels too comfortable to overprice whatever solution they have at hands. So basically, really enforcing some competition, which is also positive and pushes forward the innovation.
I
So
wanna
basically, like that, in a nutshell, that's what Babel does, and I do the part that's facing the cities, particularly the cities within Portugal.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that, and I kind of wanted to take a jump back a little bit, and I want to tackle a little bit the situation of city councils and municipalities. Because you're in a southern city, a southern country. I'm in a southern country, a South Mediterranean country. So they both operate in a very similar yet very different way. But before I do that, I kind of wanted to ask you, what is a smart city for you? And I'm saying this because I see a lot of your posts, and you say a smart city is a safe city. So I wanted to pick your mind a little bit on what exactly is a smart city for you. Is it what we see behind in your background, or is it safety?
Yeah. Well, basically, it's a bit of everything. What happens in we've got like a podcast series, and that's one of the signature questions we pose to almost all of our interview and the people we invite to the podcast. And basically, what the silver lining to it is like you don't have one sole reply because the truth is each city has its own needs at and priorities at every given moment. And what happens is like over the last 10,000 years, this concept of cities is something that has evolved pretty much. And at the end, it's pretty much giving the best supply to the needs of the people at the very best at the minimum cost to do that. So basically, and this goes like across the board. You got like more cultural oriented cities. You got others that are more oriented to safety, others more oriented to environment. So basically, like every, and that's what renders unique each city. It basically it comes from their culture, their history, and also what is the pressing needs at any given moment. So there isn't like one. That's the beauty of it. There's not one only reply. It pretty much depends on which city we're speaking and also at what moment in time.
Do you think though it has to do a lot with their culture? Because my being the devil's advocate here, I'm looking at the
Yeah.
United Arab Emirates and I'm looking at Dubai, and they had no smart city culture whatsoever. Yet they're doing fantastic things in that segment. So do you think
Yeah.
it's a cultural thing or just an innovation thing, for example?
No, well, obviously, like the smartness, it's something that will reply and speak to the specific culture of each city. I wouldn't say like the smart city is something like it's got a culture of its own. Because but at the end what happens is like if we're successful in getting a good pipeline of innovation and technology going into all the cities, it won't make much sense to speak about smart whatever because by default everything's smart. So the thing is like it's really to bring the best innovation and most suited to each specific city. So I guess like that's something that's common to all cities for sure. They want to feel that the citizens they want to feel that they gain the best service at the most suited price. So like even in the I also find very inspiring the cities from the Middle East because they've got very specific demands. And obviously, like technology, it's been something. It's like sort of a novelty, but they're taking it forward very quickly, and the pace it's taking, I believe that for sure we'll be seeing quite some novelties coming out there, because that's something that like I've also got this personally admiration for design, and one thing that design loves is challenges, and so in that challenging environment, for sure you got like plenty of innovation and that can all come throughout the world. So it's something that, yeah, I believe that when I speak of culture, it speaks to like the specific constraints and desires of each specific people
And
set of
what about
people.
Portugal? How is Portugal adapting to it in comparison to the United Arab Emirates, for example?
Well, like in Portugal, we've got like some pricing challenges, for example, and they shared with you guys in terms of water. And so water management, it's something that's becoming quite acute. And obviously, like uh, there's been some innovation has been replying to that. Even like you see some innovation that's been built in Portugal that comes from the agriculture sector. So basically, you got some technology that was developed for the agriculture sector that's been coming out from that sector into the city space. So basically, helping cities tackle their challenges from water management. So that's one example. Obviously, like you'll see others happening since Portugal isn't a rich country. Obviously, like the need to be very wise on the use of resources is something that will also push the envelope in terms of innovation, particularly like energy, transportation, and so those are fields where we've got also some companies are actually innovating and producing, and that's the beauty of it because when you got needs that they real and tangible to the people and the businesses, they themselves try to step in and also develop their own solutions. So obviously, at the end, we need to crossbreed because, for example, if we're talking about water efficiency, we've got a lot to learn from you guys, for example. And so I guess maybe we have some things that we develop, but maybe we need to also learn a bit more to even take our development further. And so, yeah, I guess there are some shared challenges.
Interesting. I want to deep dive a little bit into the bottlenecks because I'm looking at my municipality, for example. And to be fair, it's not just my municipality, but I'm looking at all of Greece, right? And for example, the background you have, I don't see it as a feasible solution anytime in the future. There, it doesn't seem like there's any willingness to have greenery, even on public buildings or on private buildings. There's no innovation in terms of pavements, so nothing like the Japanese where you step on it and it generates electricity. Um, there's no infrastructure. The city itself has been built anarchically in a way that there is no water management, at least within Athens, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. So I see no development in terms of infrastructure, at least in Greece. And it seems that smart cities is a concept that is trying to understand now and sort of see how AI and IoT, so the Internet of Things, could play an impact on it. And I
Mhm.
think for Greece, that's at least a 10 to 20 years discussion for now. So my question to you is effectively, what kind of bottlenecks do you see in smart cities, and how can any city that has absolutely set up nothing, so zero infrastructure, zero anything, barely has a grasp of what a smart city is, implement and start developing its city as a smart city?
Mm. Well, one thing for sure, like to this is like almost all the cities face that they don't have the budgets that can make it the reality to transform a city all in one moment. So that's like common. So it's not being realistic to think that something will change overnight. But there is something that is very strong, and because this is because of the budgets. Obviously, like the budgets are limited, that they need to keep they need to keep the systems working minimally because they with less capacity or more capacity, but they do provide services, and so they can't really stop everything and then transform the city into a smart city. What I see is like a driving force is the citizens for sure, and also the companies and all the other agents that operate and live with and thrive within a city. So what I do see is like whatever transformation takes place, it needs to take advantage of the people. And so uh, with that, major transformations can take place. We even saw with COVID, you saw lots of you saw lots of transformations happening in cities that were very like rigid and rigid in terms of planning and the way they were executed and built out. And like overnight, they made pop-up cycle lanes. They made so basically they used like guerrilla tactics, which was something like fanciful and would take place in only some places. Like you see the cities embracing it and really transforming. And with that, then came they made permanent part of those transformations. And so basically, and this needs to be people led, obviously, because you going against the people, uh, uh, any effort will die out somewhere along the line. So I guess like this people centricity is something very important, like to define what are the shared challenges, how do they want to move forward, and make this very transparent. So I guess like using that energy of the people is something that's very important. That's the first aspect. The second, obviously, there are very you don't want to be spreading your butter too thin along too much bread. So
Mhm.
the thing is like they need to identify like what are the key transformational aspects that they should address, and there are things that need to take place, like the watering infrastructure. They need to start somewhere, and basically, as they build out or repurpose parts of the cities, be it the infrastructure for water, be it the road, be it, for example, the communications. It's a lifeline today, and even transportation. These different systems, they they're not transformed in only one at once. So that basically they make these transformations over time, there's need to renovation. In doing that in a manner that they take advantage of what's the best that's out there at the best cost. Obviously, you don't want to be on the bleeding edge of technology because you don't want to be risking on things that maybe will render to be useless within a few years. But there are obviously things that doesn't make sense to be wasting money on putting infrastructure that's from the 80s, for example. So I guess that's the second aspect to it. It's to identify what are the key aspects where they should really be transformational. And that's something that I guess it's a balanced act moving forward.
That's very interesting. If I look at it again from my city's example, and let's assume I was leading the smart transformation of my city, my main concern primarily, yes, on one hand would have been water management. On the other hand, though, I would have focused a lot on dressing the buildings with with putting it very simplistically with agriculture or any form of greenery that sort of reduces the heat within the city. And
Mm-hmm.
concurrently, I would also try to add alternative sources of energy. So I see the solar, the wind farms at the top there, the wind
Mm-hmm.
turbines. But being a southern country, I would focus a lot on the sun. So a lot of solar panels, especially on public buildings. And we do have the groundwork, for example, in my city to be able to do that. We even have the ability to do things like solar railways, or roads. Um, those are optimal capabilities. So I guess it really depends on the geography of each municipality. But my sort of impact personally on infrastructure would have been along those lines. I don't know if it's the same for Portugal. How do you feel about it on your end?
Well, it's something that we've become known for that. We're taking advantage of renewable sources, and so there are like certain periods of the year that the country is fully self-sufficient in terms of energy,
Mhm.
and completely from renewable sources, be it wind farms or from the dams. And so that's something where we're very strong. And so that, but like that's like major energy supply on the like the lower end, like farms, solar panel farms, I think of the sort. That's something that's taken off also. And so what I do feel that there is potential, and
Excuse
it's
me,
already
Jorge.
happening.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Have you also implemented solar panels in smaller scales, like on top of city buildings,
Yep.
municipalities, et cetera?
Yeah. I
And is
mean,
it working?
there's like yeah, it's a twofold approach. Like one is it's the ESCO models where basically they're renting out the roofs from schools, for example. So basically they're paying the schools actually have an income stream from those panels. That's something that's working. And you also have like smaller scale, basically like people who have a set of like 4 to 5 panels and then they supply the network also the grid and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's also happening. So what I do see is like there's space to go further, but it's a regulatory challenge is to have the houses being more self-sufficient, and so I see there's space for that, but there are regulatory challenges. But in any case, it's something that because like in being wise, there's a thing that I think we should like try to smash. It's the oh sorry, I forgot the name. Um, the Devon's paradox. I think we should smash that one.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, but obviously it is what it is. But what I do see is like we could take advantage of those panels to make houses rely less on the network, like being really more autonomous. But that's obviously a regulatory challenge. But it is something that needs to be addressed because it doesn't make sense to have houses that are scattered throughout the landscape, needing to be connected to these major networks that are
Mhm.
complicated to power when you have so much sun, as like you guys also have.
Your regulatory roadblocks, are they coming on a municipal level or on a governmental, so a central government level, or on a European level?
Governmental, yeah, I'd say the governmental level. I'm not like fully sure if there's like European, but for sure on the national level, because it's something that yeah, obviously there's like a security side to it. There's this need to like not risk the supply of energy because it's like it's important. But it's a like an essential service like water. But at the same time, something that it should be rethought because it doesn't make sense. You got lots of houses scattered throughout the landscape that collectively we're paying a lot to maintain that network, which even that network, if there's a major fire, the network will be affected. And when those same houses with panels, they could be sufficient in terms of energy. Obviously, like if you speak for water, it's different, but in any case, I think like it's something that somewhere along the line should be rethought.
Can we get a little bit into the security of well, byproduct of security, data privacy, etc., etc. Um, are there any ethical concerns in terms of how smart cities might use citizen data?
Well, obviously, like in our case, we've got European regulations that are very clear, and so it's something that if there is some misuse, it's obviously not being compliant with the regulations. So I guess we don't need to be. Uh, what I do see is like in many cases, because of this concern in terms of the privacy. Many times you're seeing projects that have like bigger potential being shut down or like going slower with less potential than that effectively has because there are concerns, abstract concerns in terms of privacy. And that's something that I think it can be even worse maybe for us collectively than the maybe having our privacy pinched. But obviously, with this, I'm not saying that we should question the privacy. I'm just saying that we should be more educated in terms of where is the limit, because the thing is like we're being too defensive in many projects, and sometimes it's actually hurting us because we're being overcautious in times where it would be pretty basic to obfuscate data and safeguard privacy. So I think like it's holding us back because more of ignorance than properly the privacy, the safeguarding properly the privacy.
I tend to agree with you on that one, but let's assume I am the devil's advocate on this one. Is there any way to remove the concern of access to data, to citizens' data altogether from smart city development?
I guess like this all comes to active data management, and so that's something that has to have. It's got to be a must. So you can't like want to have all these fantastic technologies and use them, and not then have someone gatekeeping the privacy, and even the data management in itself. So you really want to have a sound set of databases, and you want to safeguard all the interests. And so I guess that's a key component of the management that has to be there. And obviously that means that the granularity of data will have to be questioned, because you can't really, if you've got one house that's like its only house within 10 kilometers, you can't be sharing that there's a house within that area that or turns it off on. Well, you understand, you can't be sharing information that could affect that person's
Mm.
privacy, because then it would be clear that that person is at home at a certain hour or is only at home at a certain hour. And so that I guess that comes to this data management. It's something that needs to be part of the equation. It's not just the technical aspect, but also the safeguarding of the privacy. And I think it's another factor that needs to be considered and taken on board.
And what about the vulnerabilities of the system? So vulnerabilities in smart city systems, cyber
Yeah.
attacks,
Yeah,
critical
yeah,
infrastructure failures. How do
yeah,
you deal with those?
yeah. That's something that needs to be. It's like it doesn't make sense to deploy technology without ignoring that need. It's a basic need. It's like you can't go having all these autonomous cars going around without having like firewalls or a minimum level of protection, because then like you're risking a lot. And when we're talking about water, talking about energy, talking about these essential services, then you can't like because lots of times happen with the Internet of Things. It's been like a bit of a curiosity thing, and like people playing around like the maker mindset, which is good. But when we scale and we're looking like throughout the city, we need to really be responsible. And so we need to put these safety measures in place, because we don't want to risk to have this backfire, or even have the whole technology put into a big question mark.
So I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. That, for example, the internet itself was something that was developed initially for the military and then slowly given for public sort of usage. There's a lot of technology out there that was initially planned for something else, very specific, very limited, and then sort of given to the general public. So it sounds to me, and I know we're coming close to wrapping up, but it sounds to me that for a while until we manage to implement a correct infrastructure and a correct system for developing smart cities, these processes need to be very well monitored. And once you do develop these processes, eventually, and this is my question to you, in the next 10 to 15 years, smart city development will become less centralized and more decentralized. And do you tend to agree with that?
Well, yeah, I guess it will depend on the countries, because countries and regions maybe, because obviously like you've got countries where they're very like locally focused, and so maybe you'll have like management at a regional level or even local. Then you've got like countries that are like smaller countries where the national level plays a harder hand. And so I guess it's a it's a mix. And because what happens, for example, in Portugal, you got like local elections, you got the mayors, and so they directly elected.
Mhm.
They respond directly to the people. But then at the national level, you also what happens, you see them defining the directions of investments many times. And so there is this tendency to centralize things at a national level, which sometimes disregards what's specific to the cities and regions. But on the other hand, for the sector, it it pushes the envelope further, because what happens is like every city in itself, every region will be shooting different directions, and when there's not much resources, there tends to be waste. But if you have this top-down approach where you're setting the direction, you narrow down the scope, and you make things they can potentially jump ahead faster. So it depends on each specific. Here in Portugal, that might play out in that direction. It's actually playing out. But for example, in Spain, it won't be that easy because the regions they're very strong.
Mhm.
And so you have it's quite heterogeneous. And so basically throughout Europe, it's a mix of these two extremes. So yeah, obviously this will dictate also on the speed of execution. But in any case, at the end, I guess what happens is where the people are more educated, uh, uh, obviously things in theory will move quicker and with more investment, because people at home doing their selections and making their investments with a clear understanding that's shared within a wider community will obviously reflect a smarter city, effectively a more smarter city than compared to others.
Got it. I have two final questions for you, all right?
Sure.
The first one is if you could redesign one major city from the beginning and make it a smart city, which one would it be and why?
Mm. Yeah, that's a challenging one. Yeah, because it's
Keeping in
challenging
mind
because
that
basically,
keeping in mind that
hmm,
Athens had two rivers and we've closed them both. So
yeah,
there's no
but
water access within the city. So you could make a beautiful city out of this if you could redesign it.
yeah, but like I tend to like these challenging cities. Athens could be a nice one. Because you see you've got a bit all over the globe. It's happening. It's called daylighting, where you'd have the rivers, and then when they many times they made highways on top of them, and now
Mm-hmm.
they're ripping out the highways and they restoring the rivers, and making some beautiful spaces. Obviously, like it's a challenging environment, and because it's not like what in my background, so it's not it will never be a very green like we've got over here. It's like it's a different green. It's a bit like here in Portugal. But in any case, I do like a lot this city of Athens, and I think it's got lots of potential. And so I think but I wouldn't go in wrecking it up for sure. But like daylighting would be a nice approach. Also
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of this neighborhood like uniqueness, and so you have all these different neighborhoods with the population, the families, different families live there. And I guess that gives us a very powerful energy to really transform in a different manner. Like I was saying, from the people, not just strapping on top technology, because then, yeah, but from taking advantage of them to really to transform, and maybe that like daylighting, because daylighting, for example, that's something that's a major investment. The cities will have to go there. They will have to rethink the transportation network. They'll have to rip out all that concrete and everything to make the river come back again. But those are things that are needed. But while doing that, you got lots of things that can take advantage, and for example, transportation. That's a challenge, and maybe do it like twofold, like the daylighting, and at the same time reassessing the transportation so that people rely less on cars. That also helps. That will help people, and will make their budget more, their personal budgets more available if they don't need to go around with their cars. And if you got less cars, you got more spaces to put trees. So I guess, yeah, I'd say that approach would be interesting.
My second question to you is if you could pass one message along to whoever's listening, to younger generations, what would that message be?
Well, I'd say like to not underscore the potential that they have to transform our future. So basically, we've had a time where the elders would dictate the way forward. But now I think the elders, it's becoming the other way around. Like the elders, they've got a lot to say, and we've got a lot to learn from them. But obviously, they don't have the energy that the younger ones have. So for sure, I
And
guess like
thankfully, they're slowly retreating. So I lean a lot
yeah,
on the fact that they're slowly retreating and let the younger generations sort of
yeah,
figure it out. But it's a good piece of
yeah,
advice.
yeah. No, don't underscore the potential to transform. Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this was George, Smart City Advisor, one of the best out there. George, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. It was great chatting with you. We've worked together in the past. It's always great to be in touch. I wish you all the best and thank you for participating in this.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. Likewise.
Have a good day.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye.